As the United States embarks on the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, now called Every Student Succeeds Act, the concept of every student or all students needs an historical context. The educational systems in the United States were not developed for every or all students. Over the past 60-plus years, our country has made strides to address the needs of all students in an equitable way. In 1954, the Supreme Court overturned the 1896 ruling of Plessy versus Ferguson that separate educational facilities were inherently unequal. This case was a first step in an unfinished journey of equality in education in the United States. Segregation was no longer allowed based on race, and schools began to integrate. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This act provided federal funds for professional development, instructional materials, resources to support educational programs, and parental involvement promotion. And it was established to push school districts towards a more equitable treatment of disadvantaged students, focusing specifically on low-income families. This act has been reauthorized several times, most recently in 2001, known as No Child Left Behind, or NCLB, and now as the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. Another law that was passed to provide equity in education is the Title IX Act of 1972 that states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This act over the past 40 years has provided much more equal outcomes for women, as seen in this graphic here. Title IX importantly also includes and prohibits sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and bullying, as well as most recently harassment of LGBT students. The 1974 Supreme Court case of Lau versus Nichols addressed the issues of students who are who have limited English proficiency. The Supreme Court ruled that there is no equality of treatment merely by providing students with the same facilities, textbooks, teachers, and curriculum for students who do not understand English are effectively foreclosed from any meaningful education. This expanded the rights of students around the country with limited proficiency in English, and schools began to explore numerous approaches to bilingual education. The last event of my historical timeline is the Education of All Handicapped Children Act passed in 1975. This has now been reauthorized and called Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. As a result of this act, states must develop and implement policies that assure a free, appropriate public education to all children with disabilities. It was reauthorized in 1990, 1997, and 2004. It also requires that an individualized education plan must be in place for each student determined to need special education service because of a disability. Additionally, students with disabilities must be served with the least restrictive environment, and inclusive practices are seen as best practices based on research and the law. As Every Student Succeeds Act is implemented in the United States, these important historical events provide an important context for how truly we can have every student succeed in our educational systems.